proposals. You have formal and informal proposals all the time. It just depends what the nature of the business is and the relationship that you have. So we talk about proposals. It's a written offer to solve problems, services, or sell equipment. Keep in mind, the economy of the United States really is an 80-20 split, with about 80% of our economy involved in selling services and only 20% in manufacturing goods. So a proposal could be really a life or death of an organization. I've seen companies go through and spend 2 months with a group of 3 or 4 people putting together a proposal. If they don't get it, those people that did it, they're out of a job. So to them, it's a pretty big vested interest. So it could be the life or death of an organization. So a lot of time is involved with it. They'll spend time studying the people they're going to present to as you go through in the process as well. Sometimes you have to do a proposal internally for your organization. And a lot of times it's an external one of you responding to what's called an RFP, a request for proposal. Sometimes they'll take different terminologies. So you'll see an RFQ, a request for quotation or whatever. They may have different names to them, but for the most part, somebody's asking for a proposal to do a certain project or provide a certain service as you go through. Usually on an informal one, there's always an aspect of how you write them. Introduction, you want to talk about the background, purpose, or the problem that you're going to address in your proposal. You want to have a plan and a schedule of different people. You normally include the people that will be involved with it, have a one-page resume included in the process. You'll have a budget or a dollar figure. If you don't have that, you're not going to get the job no matter what. That's a big thing. And then finally, a conclusion with a sheet to sit down and provide authorization for you to proceed. On a formal proposal, there's more components to it, and they can be very formal and sometimes very long. It's not uncommon to have a 50-page proposal identifying a whole series of things depending on the job. Sometimes you'll sit down, like for instance, on a construction project, you may sit down and have a building, and they have the building. You can propose to address all the different components of the building, or just the electrical, just the plumbing, just the foundation. So it depends how they break it all up. And the person that's looking at it can sit down and take a proposal to do the whole project or pieces of it and put it together in the process. So on a formal proposal, you'll almost always include a full copy of the RFP. You want to have a letter of transmittal saying, we're sending this correspondence to you based upon the RFP data, you put the name of it in the process. You want to have an abstract or a summary. Typically, it's a 1 to 3 page document towards the front of it that summarizes your proposal, a title page. These all sound like they're small things, but they're not. If you miss these in the process, they may throw your proposal that you spent 2 months out working on because you were sloppy as you go through. Have a good solid table of contents, list the figures in there, and figures are a big deal because sometimes if you don't have that list of figures in there, people want to sit down and go through, look at the numbers as you're going through. That's an important component. Introduction of the body, you just explain what that's going to be about. You want to explain the background and the purpose and the problem that you're solving, and then have a proposal, plan, schedule. Now it's starting to look more like the informal proposal as well, okay? And then the staffing as you go through, the budget, and the authorization in the process, and an appendix where you put supporting documentation as you go through. You'll see a lot of components for the formal proposal are exactly the same as the informal. If we just sit down there and go a little bit more on the informal, like say informal on steroids with some more formality in the process as you go through. A lot of times on the informal proposal, you go through, explain why it's being written. You want to highlight the writer's qualifications. You want to have the hook, grab them and get the reader to sit down and see that why we're really good because we do this. Okay, our low cost is this. Here's our resources. We're awesome because we have all these things going for us. And there's a serious problem over here. Okay, one that you may have caught. Sometimes the foundation, it may have some sifting sands, and we don't know if we can find any solid foundation for 70 feet down. We may have to sink pylons in as you go through. So it depends what it's about. Sometimes you want to point out things that maybe the owner didn't know about, and maybe the other people didn't, which is why you are so smart. Focus on the key issue and the benefit as you go through. The background, identify the problem and your goals. Unsolicited proposals, describe a problem, look on different parts of it as you go through. What is the RFP? Put your plan and your schedule for solving the problem, implementation and evaluation as you go through, and outline all the different activities as you go through. On the informal proposal, explain the credentials, look on the expertise as you go through, show how your senior staff are superior in your resources to other components out there, making certain that you look better, and give your clients exactly what they requested regarding staff, participants, and money, making certain you're in the proper amount. Itemize the cost, because proposals are contracts. I've had people underbid somebody else. One time I had a bid come in, the most of the bids came in over $1.2 million, and this one guy came in at $675,000, and we looked at him and everything else, and he saw that he forgot to include foundations. Like, that was kind of a critical thing. So we allowed him to withdraw the proposal, because you know what? At the end of the day, he couldn't afford to do it. He would have gone belly up if he did it, and he would have been charging this nonstop, and we would have got a really poor quality product at the end. So we let him withdraw it. And by the way, it was our choice to let him withdraw it because he formally submitted it. So be careful about the money. Present a deadline for the budget figures. Sometimes if they can't get their dollar figures together, they're asking for bids from subcontractors to go through. And then finally, you always want to sit down and make your proposal easy for approval as you go through the process. So proposals, formal and informal, you have the components there. I would recommend keeping this PowerPoint presentation for future references in case you ever get involved into creating proposals as you go through. It's kind of a common thing for most organizations. There's a lot of components to it. List the requirements prior to preparation, and really make certain the basic components always intro, background, and the purpose by the time you're all done. Take care.